Hello, welcome to another How to Code Well YouTube video. My name is Peter Fisher, and today we're going to talk about, it's the second part of the US election 2016 video. Today we're going to focus on Hillary Clinton and her email servers. The first part was focusing on social media aspects of the election, how social media has evolved, fake news, all of that kind of stuff. I'll put a link in the description up here. So this one going to focus on Hillary Clinton and her email server, because you can't talk about the US election in the context of technology without focusing on the email issue. So what actually happened? Well, back in 2009, when Hillary was sworn in, she set up her own email server at home, at her residency in New York, and she was doing all sorts of sending and receiving emails through that. That was her main email account. She also set up accounts for other people, members on her team, and just other people as well. And she did this apparently out of convenience. Okay, so because it was convenient to do that at the time. Now, if you do something like that, if you're going against, say, the norm, because she wouldn't have the .gov email account, she wouldn't be in that sort of ring-fenced, secure government system, because she's doing it outside. If you're doing that, you've got you're risking not only yourself but also your team in a number of ways. And it might seem convenient at the time, but in actual fact, it can have dire consequences down the line. She was actually there was a whole series of FBI investigations as to why she did this and how she did this and so forth. And then there was a whole sort of raft of emails that had to be checked and so on. It was just a big ball ache, really. And as to why she did it, she's saying it was down to convenience. Obviously, there could be other reasons. Don't really want to speculate too much about what they could be. But the lesson to learn here is that sometimes things can seem convenient at the time, but then down the line, they can actually just bite you and make the situation far worse than they are. In the terms of the technology, she would be prone to viruses and phishing attacks and scam attacks and all sorts of stuff. And also, she's putting the other members in jeopardy as well, because you're not actually in that sort of government system, secure account system. Then you're not following the same procedures and protocols that they would follow. Okay, and for email, that's pretty big, right? Because you do use email all the time for all sorts of things. So then that got me thinking as to, from a web developer's point of view, what is it that we are? What are the things that we do that cut corners? What are what aspects of our job do we cut corners on? Because essentially that's what she did, right? She cut a corner. She said she thought it's too difficult to set up, and this is more convenient. Yada yada yada. There could have obviously been other reasons, but essentially that is what happened. She cut a corner, and everybody cuts corners in their work, and a lot of them a lot of these corners that you cut at the time can seem very easy, quick wins at that time, but then down the line they can bite you. So for the web development side, the biggest corners that I've seen being cut are documentation, because there are so many things out there, websites and just applications that are built that are undocumented. So when and the reason why is because when you go and develop a system, you don't really have time. You might not have the time to do the documentation. Documentation usually happens right at the last minute. Okay, so not as you go along. And that can have troubling effects, especially when a new developer comes on board, because they're trying to get into the programmer's mindset, and they're trying to read the code and understand the code, but they can't because they don't have any documentation there. And because sometimes the documentation gets thrown at the last minute, it doesn't give a full account as to the reasoning process as to why it's being built in such a manner. There are tools out there that we can use to automatically generate documentation in the PHP world. There's like PHP docs that we can use. The other thing, the other corner that we like to cut is committing. When we do commits, we don't write messages as well as we should do. So when we're doing committing code to the source control, the messages could just be fixing stuff or stuff like that. Admittedly, I've done this before. I try and make a conscious effort not to, especially when you're just trying to do a quick fix because there's something urgent going wrong and you need to fix it. And you just throw it up. You just quickly commit it. But we should, use the Git commits and the SVN commits as a source of documentation as well. Also, committing too infrequently, right? So when we do a large change and we just push it up, okay, especially when you're in a team of people and those people rely on your code, because they're working on it as well, and you go and change a huge amount, in just a single commit. That's pretty bad. Sometimes there's developers who just take the work home and then sort of work on it over the weekend and then commit it on the Monday morning, and it's completely changed without notifying the team. So committing small changes and committing often changes are definite wins. Also, you've got the security aspect as well. So going back to the emails, they wouldn't be as secure as they should be. When we're setting up servers and so forth, we often create user accounts, but we often give them sudo privileges when they don't need to. We often leave ports open when they don't need to. We often don't bother just doing an audit trail just to penetration test when we ought to. And it really all comes down to time and just things being, we're not doing these things because they're inconvenient at the time, but when we get stung, when there's a security issue, when we have a new developer on, those things get highlighted more, and it usually becomes someone else's problem, right? Because if a new developer comes on board, just going back to the commit messages and the documentation, then usually we give it to the new developer to document, and it's like, that's the first exercise that they do. But if that was already in place, then they could just start running straight away. So there's also corners that we commit in a freelance world. So for instance, not quoting, not invoicing, doing things by email rather than going through official sort of invoice channels and quoting channels, and then sort of forgetting that and not doing your bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff. So there's business corners that get cut too. So it's not just technical; it's also business. And as a whole, as a development community, we need to try and get better and review the issues that we've had and put things in place to sort them out. So this is my second rant in the 2016 election. It was focusing on Hillary Clinton and the emails, and I also discussed what convenience things that we sometimes do that can trip us up in the web development world. If you've liked this video, then please give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, please do so to get the next tutorials as well as the next web chats. Comments and questions, totally welcome. Put them in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching, and I shall see you again soon.